Hi family from Shy's desk. So today I'm going to be talking about a post that I just put out, and it's titled "What You Must Know About Sexual Assaults." I listed 6 key factors that you must know and things in which you can do to help the responding detective, to bring justice for the victim. But before I get into the must knows, well, I guess you could say this is a must know as well. But I wanted to talk about some numbers. So, in my research, I found that 42% of physically forced victims do not report their sexual assault. And, based off of my experience, I'm surprised that that number is not higher because many victims do not report their sexual assault, which we'll get into as to why they don't, why they are reluctant to come forward to make their report. Also, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men over a lifetime will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime, shall I say. So 42% do not report it. 1 in 5 women, 1 in 71 men over their lifetime will be sexually assaulted. So jumping into what you must know about sexual assaults. I'm going to go in order, so this way it'll be easier for you to follow, or if you haven't already seen the infographic that I created and put it on my social media handle, which if you want to see it, my social media handles, if you are not aware, are at I am Shy Williams on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find it on my Facebook page, Shy Speaks LLC. So number 1, what you must know about sexual assaults. If you know someone who's been sexually assaulted, or you yourself have been sexually assaulted, it is important that you tell someone. And the reason why this is valuable for you to tell someone, I wanted to list this as number 1, because 1, you need the support, right? You want someone else to know what you just encountered, how you have been violated. But the first person that you tell the line of events to, they have the opportunity to provide a tape statement as well to the detective, which we'll get into when I talk about the tape statements, as far as the victim provides, and also the individual that you tell the story to first. But it's essential that you tell someone because, in a sense, it's like evidence. So you telling that individual allows them to be a witness, in a sense. Even if they did not physically witness the sexual encounter, the sexual assault, they are, in a sense, an asset to the case because they corroborate your story. So the detective will ask you, have you told anybody else this? After they interview you and get the line of events, they may ask you, have you told anybody else this? And if you say yes, they're going to want their information. And it's not to be even more intrusive or to be add difficulty or make, I don't know, like I guess people have this term now called snitching. In a sense, it's to help you. It's in order for us to be able to come out with seeking justice for the victim. So they ask the question, have you told someone else? And then you'll provide the information of that individual, and then we'll go obtain a tape statement of them as well, and it line up your line of events and then also what you told them and how they have articulated it. But it's essential to the case because it's just another key component and line of evidence. Jumping into number 2, which is they're all important. I try to put it in a chronological order of what's extremely valuable at the top of the list, involving seeking justice for the victim. But number 2 is make sure that you don't take a shower. And I know that is difficult to ask of a victim because your natural instinct, your first instinct is to, after being violated and sexually assaulted, you want to wash off the DNA, the sweat, if they kissed you or licked you, you want to be able to wash off, I'm sorry to be descriptive, but this is truly what happens, you want to be able to wash off their DNA off of you. So that's your natural instinct. But however, I don't want to say that it makes it impossible, but it does make it difficult to obtain evidence if you shower after the event. And I'll share a little backstory. I used to do undercover prostitution for my agency, and I remember my first night that I did it, which I was doing it for several hours, and I remember my first instinct, and just to dive a little deeper into it, I never was touched, during these operations, but just the thought of being violated, actually being on the street and soliciting and having men, women solicit sexual acts. My first instinct when I got home was to shower. So that put me even in a different realm of thinking, I guess you could say. When I encounter my victims, I already understood, but it took it to another level when I started the undercover work of it. So I could truly understand, without having to have been through that, I guess you could say in real time. I understand why your natural instinct is to want to shower. That was my natural instinct, and I wasn't even touched. So I understand that your natural instinct is to want to shower, but it does make it difficult for us to be able to preserve evidence and DNA to add to the outcome of the case. Like I said, I want to make sure I say this again. It is not impossible, but it does make it difficult. And I understand the psychological and emotional component attached to wanting to take a shower immediately. But it leads jumps into number 3. After the incident has taken place, the first thing that you should do, besides telling someone, is immediately go to the hospital. And when you go to the hospital, you're going to report that you have been sexually assaulted, and they will know what to do. What they would do is they would contact a SANE nurse if a SANE nurse is not readily available at the hospital. More times than not, I'll say in my experience, they have to call in the SANE nurse, so they're on call, so they have to call them, and then they have to report to the hospital, and that does take some time. And to be honest with you, that part right there, the waiting time, really puts a strain on our case, because the victim becomes tireless and impatient, and they just want to go home, right? It goes back to the number 2 of what you must know. They just want to go home and take a shower. And sometimes, that response time of the SANE nurse, it can be long, it could be short. You never know. It could be a SANE nurse who's wrapping up with another sexual assault, next door, and they have to wrap up that evaluation as well. So it does take some time, but what you will hear, at least this is what I practice with my victims, I just ask for your patience through this. I understand what you're going through, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we obtain all of the evidence and information that we can, so that we, at the end of the case, that we are able to put charges and find the suspect, so that you can have some type of healing, and also justice can be done for what was done to you. So we pretty much we beg and plead with the victim to stick around, despite the duration of waiting around for that to happen. And you may even have that, that plays on both ends. It's not just, in a hospital. You may have that with the detective as well, because we obtain the information, which we'll go over, I believe it's in number 5, with providing your description, or providing your detailed description of the line of events. It may warrant us to get your tape statement and ask you to stick around while we have patrol units circulate the area, because the suspect could still be in the area, or there could be things that we have to obtain. We may have to drive you through the area to be able for us to get a good understanding of what happened. But we'll get to that at number 5. Moving on to number 4. I want you to understand and know that the word no is a complete sentence. N-O, period. There's no comma after that. No means no. So at no point should you feel at fault for what has been done to you. At no time should you believe that it's your fault or that you put yourself in the situation. The minute that you say no, all bets are off. And I stress this, one, when I was working with my institution, my agency, we had, I don't want to say a lot, but we had a good portion of our sexual assaults that involved prostitutes. And I had to explain to them a lot because they felt as though they put themselves in a situation. And I would explain to them, regardless of your occupation, regardless of your choice of employment, no means no. At any given point when you say no, that you no longer want to proceed, no longer you changed your mind, all bets are off, and that's final. And it's like I said, no is a complete sentence. You do not need a comma after that. At no point should you say that you are at fault for someone taking advantage of you, because you cannot control their actions. So at no point should you think that you are at fault for someone taking advantage of you, someone violating you. That is not on you, that is on them. And they have something wrong with them that they have never addressed. So no is a complete sentence is what I want you to get out of that for number 4. You are not at fault. It is not your fault. Rolling into number 5. When you report your sexual assault, it is extremely important that you provide a descriptive detail of the line of events, leaving no information out. And this is essential because your perpetrator, your violator, they may or may have done this to someone else, and it may be a linking factor to another case. More so important, we want to be able to catch the perpetrator for what he did to you. So, in telling your story as a detective, we may find some holes, and we may want to, we're going to seek to fill those gaps, so this way that we can follow as closely as we possibly can the line of events of what happened to you. So what that may entail, it may entail you telling us what happened, providing a detailed description, providing us a tape statement, and we putting you in the back of our detective vehicle and driving you back to the scene, whether it's that same night or the next day. Preferably, we like to do it within hours of the incident, if not the next day. So this way it's fresh in your head, and we don't have to worry about you overthinking it or thinking that something occurred that didn't, or vice versa. We just want to be able to get the full details so that we can be able to do our job and get the suspect apprehended and off of the street so that he or she doesn't harm someone else. So it's important that you provide a detailed description, regardless of how embarrassing, regardless of how gut-wrenching the detail may be. There's no judgment. We're here to just be able to provide a service for you. And as I sit here and say this to you, it's making me draw back into when I would obtain tape statements from my victims, and I would just explain that to them. I apologize for what the suspect did to you, and just explain to them that it's not your fault, but please, I need for you to provide as much information as possible, so this way that I can be of service to you, fully of service to you, and be able to do my job and can make the connecting dots to put charges on him or her, that being the suspect who violated you. So that's essential, to be able to provide a detailed description, leaving no information out, regardless of how embarrassing it may be. And another thing, most detectives who are responding, police officers, patrolmen, more than likely you're not our first or last victim, unfortunately. So many things that you may disclose to us, we've already heard before. Or we may have heard something that's, that's more gut-wrenching than your situation. So, we can take it, and at the end of the day, we want to be able to provide a service to you. So Please do not leave any information out. Number 6, find within your state if a sexual assault has already taken place and you haven't come forward yet and you are considering it. Still come forward, but do a little research into what is the statute of limitations for your state specifically. For me, I'm here in New Jersey, so I want to be able to provide you with the statute of limitations, and I wanted to be able to provide it directly. So in the state of New Jersey, it takes statute of limitations is 2 years after the victim has reached the age of 18. Also, adding on to that, it is 5 years after discovery of offense by the victim. So what does that mean, discovery of offense? 5 years after that. So let's say we have a victim who is 18. No, let's back it up. It's 21. And they were sexually assaulted when they were, let's say, 15. But they never discovered or really came to the decision or the thought process that they were sexually assaulted. So let's say they go to a therapist or they speak to a friend about it. You know, let me run this by you. You tell me, what do you think? I don't know what to make of this. I don't know if I was sexually assaulted. I don't know if I was taken advantage of. But this is what happened. And they disclose what happened. And at that point, they have discovered through telling someone else, and someone saying like, I don't know about that. You may have been taken advantage of. You may want to, contact the police. At that point, even though it happened when they were 15, at that point at 21, the time of when they have discovered that the offense has taken place or that they were sexually assaulted, through that discovery, at that point they have 5 years from that day to make the report. And statute of limitations, it allows you, it gives you a timeline of when you can charge someone. I would still say make the report even if the statute of limitations have expired, because again, more times than less, the suspect has done it before, so even if the statute of limitations has ran out for your case, it may not have ran out for another case, but it can also be able to provide justice for another victim and even for you in the long run as well. But it's still valuable for you to be able to make that report. So that's what I have for you as far as what you must know as far as sexual assaults. I wanted to be able to put this together for you, especially during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So from my desk to your ears to your view, I hope that you were able to learn something from this video, from this list. I hope that it was beneficial for you or someone that you may know who is battling being sexually assaulted. Thank you, and peace.